You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mama friends, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I am so glad you're here. In case you're new around here, my name is Marissa Lonick. I am your host. I am the founder of Mama Work It, where we support women in the juggle of mom life, work life, wife life, fill in the blank life. And I am so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Laili Gonzalez. Laili has worked as an interior designer for nearly 20 years, but it was her own journey and deep belief in transformation that led her to Feng Shui. As a licensed practitioner, she focuses on balancing both the aesthetics and the energetics of your home to harness its power and create spaces that propel clients toward greater joy, expansion, and harmony. Laili is passionate about helping people do the outer work by incorporating their environment as an essential pillar in their healing, growth, and mindset journey. Laili, I am so excited for this conversation. I cannot wait to dive in. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Great. Well, just to get us started here, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your journey and what led you to where you are now.
Absolutely. I think as most of your listeners, I am a mom, and that is one of the biggest things that really led me towards a lot of transformation and soul searching. When you become a mom, it just changes your whole world. And when I had my first son, he had a lot of medical issues. And in navigating the journey with him and as a new parent, as a parent who was actually at the time living far away from family and friends in a foreign country, navigating everything in a different language, I really started to search for ways that I could support myself and my family. And being an interior designer, my home was always something that I would go to. And, over the course of years, I realized that it wasn't just how it looked, but how it felt that made such a difference. And it was being sensitive to these subtle energies, both myself and my children. As my family grew, you also have the different energies, the different personalities, and kind of trying to navigate all of this in a single space was really a challenge for me. And it made me want to really understand what was going on in my home that I could do to really support my kids, to support myself, to bring some sort of sense of control, because really we have none. and what we have at our disposal is our mindset and our physical environment. And those were the two things that I really wanted to focus on. And Feng Shui for me was this sort of missing key to all of the mindset and sort of emotional work that I was doing. And it really helped to bring everything together for me. And it was such a revelation to understand how my home can support or challenge what was going on in my life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that you said we really have no control, because that is the truth. And the two things that you were able to harness and that you continue to help people be able to harness are their mindset and their environments. And I'm really enthralled. I'm fascinated. I'm excited to dive into talking about this, because I always say when your house is in order, so is your head.
Absolutely.
Right? You know that feeling, like when everything's just feels calm and zen and put away and put together at home, you feel good. Like you feel like your best self. So tell us more about your home environment. Like, is that scientifically proven? Does that impact the quality of your life, your goal setting, your ability to manifest, your Zen peacefulness, whatever it is. Tell us how they correlate.
Well, they're actually starting to do studies now, especially I think with the rise of decluttering and this sort of fascination with how clutter impacts our lives. They're doing a lot of studies now that show that when we are in an environment that is organized, that is sort of clutter free, and that's relative. I think we need to take that with a grain of salt. We're not saying the world needs to be minimalist, but just what works for us, it does actually help to reduce things like anxiety, to help people with that feeling of calm and peace that we're all kind of searching for. And what I like to say about feng shui is, while there aren't, I think, as many studies scientifically being done on what feng shui does, it's been around for thousands of years. It actually dates back roughly 4,000 years when you look at the beginnings of feng shui. And things don't stand the test of time if they don't actually have an impact and work. And that's one of the things about feng shui. And there's a lot of different schools of feng shui now, and different sort of thought processes. We have a lot of kind of pop feng shui and Western feng shui, and then we have more traditional feng shui. All of them have a level of validity. And I don't think they would have been able to stay around and function as long as they have if they did not have that impact. And you said it, when our external environment feels great, so we feel great on the inside. And it's that sort of the whole concept of as without, so within. If we look at the clutter around us, look at the spaces around us, and they don't make us feel happy, they don't make us feel calm, it's going to add to that internal struggle that we already are facing.
Yeah, 100% agree. So, for someone listening to today's episode who's never really heard of Feng Shui, or maybe they have, but they're not too sure exactly what it is, can you tell us a little bit about it? Just give us like a little quick and dirty explanation, help us wrap our head around it.
Sure. So I think first I kind of start with the myths of feng shui. A lot of people, they know a little bit about it and they're like, oh, where my bed is placed, where my sofa is placed, that's a very small part of feng shui. Feng shui is really more focused on actually harnessing the energy that surrounds us and connecting our homes with nature. It takes a look at our homes somewhat similarly to the way astrology or human design, if you're familiar with them, look at our birth charts. Our home also has an energetic chart that is also affected by the movement of the stars. And when we can take a look at that and understand that, we can essentially adjust and harness the energies in the house so they are the most supportive for us. And in traditional feng shui, which is what I practice, we're less concerned about your furniture, the color of your sofa, where your bed is, and we're more concerned about the actual physical home, the structure of the home, how it's oriented on the land, and then using elements. So feng shui relies on the elements of fire, earth, water, wood, and metal to essentially alchemize the energy in your home.
Okay, fascinating. So, let's say you've purchased your home. This is a
Mhm.
major purchase, right? Like
Absolutely.
all your savings went into this down payment.
Yep.
You're paying this mortgage, and you didn't know what was the like best feng shui for you to be living in, but now you're here. How do you manage that?
That's actually exactly what we do. I mean, I think what is beautiful about feng shui is that there's always a remedy, so to speak.
Mm.
So, there are house types. We can look at homes and analyze them and understand whether a home is supportive of relationships or finances, one, the other, or both, or neither. And then we bring in these physical elements. So I might do a report for your home and I might suggest that in one specific area, and we divide the home into 9 different guas or areas. So in these areas, they all relate to different parts of your life. And we might see that in, say, your love and relationship area in your house in particular, because each home is unique, you might actually benefit from having fire energy. So I might suggest putting some, fire elements, red colors, crimsons, things like that in that area. But in another area of your home, I might suggest that you actually need a water fountain, or you might need to put metal, like physical, heavy metal, into that space. And what these elements do is they then work with the energy flowing through your home to balance what is going on, so that we can enhance the good, negate the bad.
I love that. And this is bringing me back, just fun fact here. When I purchased my first condo, one bedroom
Mhm.
condo, 20, I don't know, 24 years old, 25, I remember painters taping off, like measuring off, doing the 9 quadrants
Oh, I love that.
and trying my best to incorporate the elements like you're talking about, the color schemes, the things. Like I didn't go nuts, right? Like I had my walls painted already. The
Yeah,
living room was the living room. You couldn't necessarily adjust it 600 square feet. What could you really do in that
right,
case? But
exactly.
I do remember, okay, I want to put things that are white or in pairs in that romance space or that love
Yeah,
space, or
yeah,
yeah, so it's bringing me
yeah.
back to many years ago when I
Yeah,
did
I
like
mean,
my
and I
own
think
mini version of this.
that's so beautiful because you were doing something to support yourself in your own environment. And like you said, you can't do anything about the layout of the space. And I think that's really important. A lot of people get worried, like, oh, will I have to knock down walls? Will I have to, change my carpeting? Will I have to change my sofa? No, it's about adaptation and working with what's already there. And I think that's a really essential thing to keep in mind. And with traditional feng shui, the guas rely on the actual compass direction. So not where your front door is, which is a lot of what, if you like look up feng shui, a lot of times it'll come up and it'll tell you to align that gua map with your front door. For me, that map might be a little different. So instead of having like the north in the front of my house, I align it with my actual home, which is the west. So it does change a bit what you would need in those guas. And then, based on when your house was built, based on what's going on in the universe now, then I would adjust those remedies. And that is one thing to keep in mind, is that it's a constant journey. So every year as the energies shift, so does the feng shui of your home. And I think I like that viewpoint of it too, because we're all always shifting and changing. Nothing is
Yes.
static. And so even the energy of our homes, it's not static. And it's important to keep that in mind, that, we need to have that flexibility of being able to change things. So that's exactly why I'm not going to tell you, knock down that living room wall, or, get rid of this carpet, because as the energies change, maybe those things will eventually actually be beneficial to you.
Right, right. And to be honest, it doesn't necessarily have to be, like you said, like new or different things that you're replacing. It
Exactly.
could even be shifting where something is, like where the furniture
Absolutely.
is in the room or things like that.
Absolutely.
Little
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of our listeners, right? All of our listeners, mamas, a lot of little kids around. You know
Yeah.
this. I know
Yeah.
this. It can feel easier said than done to maintain a space that feels calm at home sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Especially when it feels anything but calm most days here. So, how can practicing feng shui or introducing this into your home support that even in a season where you're not necessarily, you don't feel like that's possible for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I am in that season. I have 3 young children. They have a lot of stuff. It gets very messy. And I think the first thing outside of feng shui is, it is so important to remind every mother, give yourself grace. There is no need for perfection. Your home does not need to be a show home. And when you're looking at these beautiful houses in the magazines, know that the designers spent 3 days staging them before they took those photos. So, I think comparison is often the thief of joy, and that is one of those things. So there is that level of our home. Yes, we want to be able to declutter. Yes, we want to feng shui, but we don't need to have perfection. And when we introduce feng shui, we're essentially introducing a base layer of support. What we're doing is that we are making the energetic flow in that home harmonious. We are making it beneficial and supportive. So even if there is a lot of clutter, even if there are kids in chaos, your home in and of itself is going to give you a sense of calm and peace. And that's really an essential tool in supporting ourselves. There will be days where things are everywhere. There will be days where things are up and down, but we know that our home is sort of following us with our highest good in mind. And then, decluttering is not feng shui, but it is an essential tool. It's a tool that we as feng shui practitioners often use. But also, I mean, there's a reason why it's taken the world by storm. And I think, this is a really important thing that we need to keep in mind is that the end goal is not, again, perfection or minimalism. The end goal is to ensure that what we have surrounding us is really serving a purpose. So if we know that in this stage of our life, a lot of these things that kind of create clutter for us are serving a purpose because they're bringing our kids joy, because they are the toys and tools that they play with and use and learn from, then we can sort of accept that without feeling like it's overwhelming because we know they're serving a purpose, and we know that there is a time when those things will no longer be needed, and we can then let go of them happily and allow them to either find their way to someone else's home or to be, recycled, disposed of, whatever it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, do you incorporate your children into that decluttering process, into your feng shui processes at home? Because I feel like I hear often from people, it's best to have the kids included when you are decluttering and getting rid of things and like asking their permission or getting them
Yeah.
involved in that process. And yet, I don't know if you feel like this, Laili, but I think kids are hoarders. I mean, they just never want to get rid of anything, especially like the garbage they get in like birthday party goodie bags that you
Yes,
just
the little plastic toys that are everywhere. Absolutely. So I take a yes and no approach to that answer. I'm sure there are people who will agree and disagree. My personal thing is if they're big things like toys, anything to do with clothing that they like, I absolutely ask them. If there's, like a t-shirt that is 3 sizes too small, I try and help them part with it, even if it's their favorite t-shirt, and explain that it no longer fits, that we can try and find another favorite t-shirt, things like that. With the little plastic toys, I have told my kids, if I find these all over the floor time and time again and you're not taking care of them, they will go into the trash. So they have fair warning, but I don't ask what I'm throwing away. The little things that do happen to do that. And if they break, I've also told them that they will not, remain unless you can actually use it for something. I agree. Kids are a bit of hoarders. They have a hard time letting go of things. I have spent a lot of time talking with my kids about how, as we sort of age out of things, it's nice to donate and allow other children who are less fortunate to have access to those things. So they're starting to be a bit more, amenable to letting things go. When it comes to the feng shui, my kids are sort of used to it, but they're not that involved. They're really funny because they'll see like, underneath their desk, there might be an actual like pile of metal weights, or there'll be certain crystals in certain parts of the house and stuff like that. And at this point, they know that they're there, they're part of the feng shui, and they just sort of, ignore everything and know that that's mommy's thing. And we're just going to leave it, as it is.
I love that. Remind me of their ages again.
So I have a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and an 11-year-old.
Yeah. I love this because I feel like even with my own kids, with some things that I do that maybe are not as mainstream, let's just say, right? Like I love that they're seeing it. And it's sort
Yeah,
of like, to me, it's like indirect parenting in a way, because they're
absolutely.
finding that like, oh, my mom had this, practice she did, or this hobby she did, or this business she did, or this habit she did, whatever it is, that fill in the blank. And it's normal. It's normal in our home and it's normal to them. And I love that about it. Like for us, like I'll just take the example of meditating. They
Mm,
see that I do this on a daily morning basis. They ask me now, sometimes at night when they're having trouble falling asleep, hey, can you put on a meditation for me? Or like if they're having an anxious morning and they want to relax before
yeah,
school. And I love that this stuff is just like the tradition of our home, just like your kids are finding the crystals or the metal and they're not like, what's this doing here? Right. Like it's
yeah,
just, this is how our home
yeah.
flows.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's beautiful about that is what you said. Kids are curious and they'll start to ask questions. And if you can, find a minute to explain things in a way that sort of resonates with them, they will then go to these tools like they're coming to you to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to understand that it's actually something helpful and beneficial for them. And I think that's really the beauty of it. And I want my kids to have that open mind when they're faced with things that might seem a little strange, that they can, like you said, they'll grow up with this in their own home and they'll think it's not that strange. They can accept it. And so they'll be more likely to be accepting of other things as well.
Likewise. I love that. Yeah. All right. Final question here. Any just tangible action steps, tips for the working mom listening who wants to get started but doesn't really know how or where to start? Like, would you recommend a book? Does your website have free resources? Should they join your membership program? What's the one tip you'd say today to dive in and just like dip your toe?
Oh, that's so funny. I'd say all of those things. Well, I mean, I think if they want to start, one awesome thing that I have is the membership program that you mentioned, but also a program that I've created called the 30-day home detox. I created it sort of with the busy mother in mind, where we want to kind of clear and cleanse and kickstart the energy flow in our home. And it's not easy. And sometimes just picking up like a decluttering book or KonMari or something like that, it doesn't actually inspire you. And what I do in the program is really to teach connection with our home. And that's really the basis behind it. So we use principles of Feng Shui paired with decluttering. So that is one direction I would point them in. But just as a starter, start with your front door. It is where the energy enters our home, and just open it up, let in the fresh air, clean it out, organize that space. It will shift the energy of your home, even in a small way, and you will feel that difference. And I think that's one of the things that I always love to tell people. And there is a free resource on my website that can kind of help that as well.
I love that. And I have a follow-up question to it because this is who I
Sure.
am. So I feel like the front door space in my home is pretty decent, right? It's
Yeah.
like a nice way to enter the home, but we don't often use it. We enter
Mm,
our home often through our garage,
yeah.
which is like the worst space to enter
Yeah.
because it's not beautiful. It's not clutter free. It's like, not the prettiest space.
Yeah.
What would you say in that case?
Well, two things. One, if there are things you can do to make that entrance, better, just like making the pathway a little less clutter free, even putting like a beautiful doormat that you kind of like to see that brings a smile to your face. Anything small, it doesn't have to be a big thing. That is, one way to kind of help that energy coming in. The other thing that I would say is take an intentional moment to use your front door from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Just, sometimes we have to add it on your list. You are not alone. And this is like a very common question and comment that I get. And, particularly, I think in North America, where our houses are just built this way, we either have like a mudroom door or a garage door, a back door that we enter through because that's just the way our houses are designed. Make it as nice as you can, but sometimes just walk around to the front door and use it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like doing that treat for yourself, like something nice for yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. You're
I
doing
love
something
that.
nice for your home.
Yeah. That's great advice. All right. Thank you so much. All right, Laili, we're moving on now to the lightning round part of the show where we are just going to ask you some random non feng shui related questions just to get to know you a little bit more personally. Are you ready?
Fabulous. Ready.
Okay, here we go. If you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Fiji, and I think because it's like far and tropical.
Yeah,
That's it. Just far and tropical.
love that. All right. What if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life? What would it be? Calories don't count.
Ooh, probably sushi.
Yeah. What's your get it done song? Like the song that really pumps you up, motivates you?
I'm a music like fanatic, so there's just not one song, but I absolutely love reggaeton. And
Yes.
it's what I listen to when I really want to pump myself up.
Oh my gosh, yes, bringing me back to like my Daddy Yankee days
Yeah,
for
exactly. It just
sure.
gets you going. Gets
Yes,
you moving, gets you going.
that song can make you run when you
Yeah,
feel like you have zero energy. Absolutely.
exactly.
All right, what is your guilty pleasure TV show?
I don't watch a lot of TV, but I think if I picked one, it probably is a tie between Schitt's Creek and Ted Lasso.
Good choices there. Let's see. What if you could have any superpower? What would it be?
Oh, I had to think about this. My kids ask me questions like this a lot. And I feel like I'm the kind of person who'd be like, well, I want the superpower that can mimic any superpower. And they always get mad at me. They're like, no, mom, that's not it. I'm like, no, but that's the power I want.
Love it. All right, finally, what's something most people don't know about you?
I actually I love languages and I speak five, not all of them super well, but it is something that I love and I can actually understand other languages that I've never studied before. So it's like a real hobby of mine.
That's a gift. Yeah.
Yeah,
And now
it's a
tell us
lot of
what the
fun.
five languages are.
So obviously English, but I also speak Persian, French, Spanish, and German.
Love it. Amazing.
Yeah.
And you
And
said
the
you lived
Romance languages, I kind of understand Italian and Portuguese if I pay a lot of attention.
okay, and you said follow up to this. You said you lived out of the country, so where did you live?
Well, so my kids were born in Switzerland in the French speaking part, and then we moved to the German speaking part. But I actually also lived in France and in the French speaking part of Canada. So I learned French a long time ago. And then German was more recent, which is also why I don't speak it nearly as well as the other languages.
That's awesome. All right. All right, Laili. Well, before we officially wrap up today's episode, please tell our listeners where they can find you.
That would be great. So they can find me on Instagram, which is the same as my website. It's The Measured Life, and measured is spelled with Z. And then they can also check out the Empowered Evolution membership, which is theempoweredevolution.com. And then, of course, themeasuredlife.com, or on Instagram as The Measured Life.
Perfect. And we will put all of those links in today's show notes, as well as a link to get to that 30-day detox that you talked about. Thank you for sharing about that. Laili, this has been such a great conversation. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners learned a lot. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. It's so fun to be on the show.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.